It is November 14th, 2023, Madison, Wisconsin. The wind off Lake Mendota has that November sound, cold, sharp, like a knife drawn once across a piece of glass. Frank Holm is sitting at his kitchen table. He is 76 years old. His wife Linda is 74. They have been married for 51 years. On the fridge behind him, there is a crayon drawing from his granddaughter Hazel, a pumpkin with a crooked smile. The kitchen smells like burnt coffee because Frank forgot to turn off the pot. The thermostat on the wall reads 62. They keep it low this month because the heating bill last month was $312. On the table in front of Frank, there is a brown envelope from the Internal Revenue Service. The return address in the corner is printed in block letters. The weight of the envelope is wrong. You know when an envelope feels too heavy. You feel it in your hands before you ever open it. You feel it the way you feel a sick feeling in the back of your throat. Frank opens it. Inside is a letter dated October 31st. It is printed on plain IRS letterhead. It says Frank Holm owes $127,400 in federal income tax, due in 30 days, plus interest for late payment, plus a penalty for underpayment. $127,400 on a kitchen table, next to a stack of unpaid medical bills from Linda's hip surgery in August, next to a coupon for 10% off at Piggly Wiggly that Linda clipped from the Sunday paper. Frank built a retirement account worth $2,100,000. He built it over 41 years at a dairy equipment company outside Madison. He started in 1982. He made just enough to max out his contributions most years. He never borrowed from it. He never took a loan against it. He did everything the financial magazines said a good American saver should do. He saved. He waited. He was patient. And now the United States government says he owes $127,000 in 1 year on money he never even spent. Linda walks into the kitchen. She sees the letter on the table. She does not say a word. She stands there with the wooden spoon still in her hand. Frank looks up at her. He says the same thing most retirees in this country say when the letter arrives. He says, "I thought this was safe." It was not safe. None of it was safe. The retirement account was not the reward. The retirement account was the trap. If this hit you in the chest, hit like right now. And if your mom or dad is over 73, send them this video tonight. Not tomorrow, tonight. Because most American families do not find out about this rule until the brown envelope arrives. I am not a financial advisor. I am not an elder law attorney. I am the person who goes digging when a family calls me crying. And the rule I am about to show you is the single most common reason middle-class retirees lose the money they spent 40 years building. It is called the required minimum distribution. And right now, in 2024, it is the quietest thief in the American tax code. Let me tell you exactly what it does to a real family. Frank Holm had $2,100,000 in a mix of traditional IRAs and a 401k. He rolled over when he retired in 2011 at age 63. He and Linda thought that money was their reward. They thought it was the reward for a lifetime of work. They thought it would pay for Linda's hip surgery. They thought it would pay for the new roof they needed on the ranch house they have lived in since 1979. They thought it would leave something behind for their daughter Karen in Denver and for Hazel. What they did not know is that the United States tax code treats your traditional IRA as a tax-deferred account. That is a fancy phrase that means the government let you put money in without paying tax on it. So when you finally pull money out, you pay tax then. The government waits. And then the bill arrives. Frank's accountant had been telling him for years, "Frank, you do not need to take money out of that IRA. You have Social Security. You have a small pension from the dairy company. Just let it grow." That advice sounded right, so Frank let it sit, year after year. Then Frank turned 73, and the IRS sent him a letter, a different kind of letter. It said that starting that year, the federal government now requires him to pull a certain percentage out of his traditional IRA every year, whether he needs the money or not, whether he has other income or not, whether it is the smartest financial move or not. The dollar amount is set by a government table. The percentage goes up every single year as Frank ages. This is the required minimum distribution. In plain words, it is the rule that forces you to pull money out of your retirement account every year starting at age 73, and that money counts as ordinary income on your tax return, the same as a paycheck. But it gets worse. And this is the part almost no one tells you about. When your income jumps because of a forced withdrawal, 3 things happen at the same time. First, your federal income tax bracket jumps. The money you pull out stacks on top of your Social Security and your pension. So the marginal rate goes up, the tax bill jumps. Second, your Social Security check becomes taxable. There is a rule buried in the IRS code that says once your income crosses a certain line, up to 85% of your Social Security check becomes taxable. So now the Social Security you paid into for 40 years gets taxed. Again. Third, your Medicare Part B and Part D premiums jump. There is a separate rule called IRMAA. That stands for Income Related Monthly Adjustment Amount. In plain words, it is the Medicare premium surcharge. Once your income crosses another line, you pay hundreds of dollars more per month for the same Medicare plan, for the same coverage, just because your income went up. And you did not earn anything. You did not get a raise. You did not start a business. The government took your retirement account and forced you to pull money out, and then charged you for it 3 times. Frank did not know any of this was coming. He had never heard the word IRMAA. He had never heard the words required minimum distribution explained this way. He thought he would just slow down, garden, watch his granddaughter grow up, and leave something behind. Instead, in 2022, Frank owed $46,000 in extra federal income tax because of his first required withdrawal. In 2023, the percentage went up. He owed $68,000. Then the brown envelope arrived in November, $127,400, because the percentage went up again, and his Medicare premium surcharge jumped from a flat rate to the highest tier over 4 years, from 2020 to 2023. Frank and Linda paid $487,000 in extra taxes, surcharges, and lost Social Security benefits because of one rule, $487,000, on money they never touched until the government made them touch it. How many of you thought the IRA was safe? Put your age in the comments if you are over 73. Let us see how many of us are sitting in the same chair Frank is sitting in right now. Let me break the hidden system down in plain words. The Internal Revenue Code Section 401 says that most traditional retirement accounts are tax deferred. That is a fancy phrase that means the money goes in before tax. The government lets your savings grow without being taxed every year. That sounds like a deal. But the deal has a cost. The cost is at the other end. When the money comes out, the government gets its cut then, plus interest. The Internal Revenue Code Section 401A-9 is the one most people have never heard of. It is the section that says, when you turn 73, you must pull money out. The amount is calculated using a table published by the IRS based on your age and the balance of your account at the end of the previous year. The older you get, the larger the percentage. By age 85, you are pulling out almost 10% a year whether you can afford to or not. This rule is automatic. There is no opt-out. There is no application. There is no form you can file that says, I do not need the money this year. The IRS does not care if you need the money. The IRS does not care if your expenses are low. The IRS does not care if you have other income. The distribution is mandatory. The penalty for missing it is 25% of the amount you should have taken, plus regular tax, on top of regular tax. Now here is the cruel part. The money that comes out is treated as ordinary income. Ordinary income is the highest taxed kind of money in the United States. It is taxed at federal rates that can go all the way up to 37%. It is taxed at state rates. In Wisconsin, Frank's state, the top rate is just under 8%. So when Frank pulls out $100,000, the federal government takes $37,000, and the state of Wisconsin takes almost $8,000. And then the Social Security taxation kicks in, and then the Medicare premium surcharge kicks in, 3 taxes on the same money pulled out of the same account that Frank thought was safe. Let me do the math for a family like Frank's. Real feel numbers, round numbers, big numbers, so you feel the weight of it. Suppose you and your spouse are both over 73. Suppose you have a combined $2 million in traditional IRAs. Suppose you also get Social Security. Suppose your only other income is a small pension. In 2024, the IRS required withdrawal rate at age 73 is roughly 3.5%. That means you must pull out about $70,000 a year. At age 74, it goes up. At 75, it goes higher. By age 80, the rate is over 5%. At 73, with a $2 million IRA, you pull $70,000. Add your Social Security of $42,000. Add your pension of $24,000. Your total household income is now $136,000, most of it sitting in the 24% federal bracket. The tax bill, before any strategy, before any planning, before any help, is roughly $28,000 to $32,000 a year, every year, forever, as the percentage rises. And as the percentage rises, your income rises. And as your income rises, your Medicare Part B premium that month goes from $175 to over $500 a month. That is a $4,000 a year jump, just for the same Medicare. That is the IRMAA rule, the Medicare surcharge, plain words. Now add the Social Security piece. Up to 85% of your Social Security check becomes taxable. The IRS formula for that is twisted. It uses a base amount known as the provisional income. As your IRA withdrawal rises, your provisional income rises. Your Social Security starts to count, 20% taxable, 50% taxable, 85% taxable. So the same dollar of Social Security, money you paid into the system for 40 years, money you already paid tax on once, gets taxed again. because the IRS needs to make up for the deduction you took 40 years ago when you put the money into the IRA in the first place. And this is the three-way tax bomb. Pull money from the IRA, pay federal tax, pay state tax, pay higher Medicare premiums, pay tax on Social Security. 5 different costs, all came from one forced withdrawal. Frank Holm paid $487,000 over 4 years. He did not pay $487,000 because he spent money. He paid it because the IRS forced him to take money out, and the rest of the tax code punished him for taking it out. You did not build wealth to feed the tax code. You built wealth to live on, to leave something behind, to take care of the people you love. Let me do one more piece of math that most retirees never see. Suppose Frank had taken a different path. Suppose 10 years earlier, when he retired from the dairy equipment company, he had rolled his 401k into a Roth IRA. The Roth IRA is not tax deferred. You pay tax on the money when you put it in. But once it is in, every dollar that comes out is tax-free. Every dollar of growth, every dollar of withdrawal. Suppose Frank had converted $200,000 a year to a Roth IRA for 10 years. In 10 years, that would be $2 million. All Roth, all tax-free on the way out. Suppose Frank had also done something called a qualified charitable distribution. That is a rule that lets you send your required withdrawal directly from your IRA to a qualified charity. The money still counts as your required withdrawal, but because it never lands in your bank account, it never counts as income. You never pay tax on it. You never trigger Social Security taxation on it. You never trigger the Medicare surcharge. Frank could have given $200,000 a year to his church, to a local food bank, to the University of Wisconsin. He would have satisfied the rule. He would have paid zero tax on it, and the charity would have done good with the money. He did not know. Nobody told him. The word QCD never came up in any conversation he had with anybody at the dairy company. It never came up in any conversation he had with the bank teller. It never came up in any conversation he had with the local financial advisor at the credit union. And Frank is not alone. This is happening to thousands of families right now. In Madison, in Milwaukee, in Green Bay, in Waukesha, in every state in the country, retirees who saved their whole lives, who did what they were told, who thought the IRA was the reward. Now here is where it gets even more painful. And I need to say this clearly because nobody in the system will say it to you. The RMD rule does not just hit you while you are alive. It can hit your family after you die. If you die at age 80, your traditional IRA is inherited by your daughter Karen. Karen must now follow a separate set of rules. Most non-spouse beneficiaries have to empty the entire account within 10 years. They cannot spread it out, they cannot wait, they take it all out inside 10 years, and they pay ordinary income tax on every dollar, at Karen's marginal rate. 41 years of savings pulled out in 10 years, taxed at Karen's highest rate. Karen is 53. She is a respiratory therapist in Denver. She is not wealthy. She cannot afford to absorb $200,000 a year in extra taxable income. There is one strategy that solves this. It is called the inherited IRA stretch for a spouse. If the beneficiary is your spouse, they can roll it into their own IRA and keep using the same required minimum distribution rules. Husbands and wives get this benefit, daughters do not, sons do not. If Frank had known this in 2011 when Linda was 62, he could have set up Linda as the primary beneficiary on every account. He could have made his estate the contingent beneficiary. The structure would have protected Karen from the 10-year tax bomb. He did not know. The beneficiary form at the credit union was signed in 1998. It still listed Frank's brother Thomas, who had a falling out with the family in 2003, and who Frank had not spoken to in 20 years. This is not a financial problem. This is an information problem. This is a system designed so that normal families do not know the rules, and the rules cost them everything they built. Let me show you what a typical middle-class family looks like in this trap. Not Frank and Linda, a smaller family. Meet Sandra and Roy Peck. They live in Kenosha, Wisconsin. Roy is 78. Sandra is 75. Roy worked for 32 years at a Chrysler plant in Kenosha. He has a traditional IRA worth $812,000, plus a small pension of $22,000 a year, plus Social Security of $31,000 a year. In 2024, Roy must pull out about $31,000 from his IRA. That puts his total household income at $84,000. His federal tax bill on the IRA alone is roughly $4,600. His Medicare premium jumps by about $120 a month. His Social Security becomes 50% taxable. Total annual cost of the forced withdrawal, roughly $6,300 in extra federal tax, plus roughly $1,400 in extra Medicare premiums, plus roughly $1,800 in extra Social Security taxation. That is $9,500 a year every year until the IRA is empty. Roy did not see the letter coming. He did not know the rules had changed. He thought the IRA was his reward. Now, here's the part of the video I need you to actually remember. There are 3 legal and financial strategies that protect families from this trap. Strategy number 1, Roth conversions. That is the act of moving money from your traditional IRA into a Roth IRA. You pay tax now, on your terms, at your bracket. But once the money is in the Roth, every future dollar comes out tax-free, and Roth IRAs have no required minimum distributions during your lifetime. None. Zero. If you can afford to pay the tax on the conversion out of other savings, you can quietly shrink the RMD problem year by year. Strategy number 2, qualified charitable distributions. If you are over 70 and a half and you give money directly from your IRA to a qualified charity, that money counts toward your required withdrawal. But it never lands in your bank account, so it never counts as income. You never pay tax, the charity gets the full dollar, and in many cases you can give up to $105,000 a year this way per person. Frank and Linda together could have moved over $200,000 a year out of their IRA and into Wisconsin charities with zero tax and reduced their RMDs at the same time. Strategy number 3, asset location. That means putting your highest growth investments in your Roth account and your safest, slowest investments in your traditional IRA. As the IRA grows, the required withdrawal grows. As the Roth grows, there is no required withdrawal. You control where the tax bomb lands. There is a 4th strategy, and this one is for husbands and wives. Beneficiary planning. Make sure your spouse is the primary beneficiary on every traditional IRA. Make sure the contingent beneficiary is your estate or a properly drafted trust. Because if a non-spouse inherits the IRA, the 10-year drain kicks in. These strategies are legal. They are widely used. They have been in the tax code for years. Almost nobody talks about them to everyday families because nobody gets paid to sit down at a kitchen table and explain them. Banks do not explain them. Credit unions do not explain them. HR departments at retiring companies do not explain them. Elder law attorneys explain them. Good financial advisors explain them, but you have to find one, and most families do not know they need one until the envelope arrives. Let me tell you what happens when the envelope arrives and you do nothing. I want to paint this picture because it is real, and because the cost of waiting is now visible. Frank Holm is 80 today. The percentage the IRS forces him to take out of his traditional IRA is now roughly 6%. That is $120,000 a year. His federal tax bracket has jumped to the highest tier. His Medicare premium is now in the top IRMAA bracket. His Social Security is 85% taxable. His accountant calls him in March and says, "Frank, we cannot stop this anymore. The percentage keeps going up. And the balance keeps growing in some years, so the dollar amount keeps growing." Frank is sitting at the same kitchen table. Hazel is now 13. The crayon pumpkin drawing has been replaced by a report card on the fridge. The thermostat is still 62. The heating bill last winter was $412. Frank cannot afford to do the new roof. He cannot afford to take Linda to see her sister in Phoenix. He cannot afford to leave Karen and Hazel anything real, because every dollar he pulls out of the IRA goes to tax. Every dollar that stays in the IRA keeps growing the percentage the IRS forces out next year. The trap closes like a vice, slowly, quietly, year by year. This does not have to be Frank's story, and it does not have to be yours. Here's your tonight action plan. Tonight, this week, this month, real steps. Tonight, sit down at your kitchen table, pull out every tax return you have for the last 3 years, pull out every IRA statement, pull out every 401k statement, pull out every retirement account statement from every old employer. Look at the total. Look at your age. Look at the total you pulled out last year. Look at what the IRS said you owed. That is your real cost. That is the number nobody at the bank told you about. This week, call an elder law attorney, not a general attorney, not your family lawyer. An elder law attorney who works on retirement tax planning and Medicaid planning. If you do not know one, ask your CPA. If your CPA does not know one, that is your sign. The first conversation usually costs between $150 and $300. It can save you hundreds of thousands. Ask them about Roth conversions. Ask them about qualified charitable distributions. Ask them about your beneficiary forms. Ask them about your state's tax treatment of retirement income. Wisconsin does not tax Social Security. Some states do. The math changes by where you live. This month, fix your beneficiary forms, sign new ones, make sure your spouse is the primary, make sure the contingent is set, make sure no old ex-spouse, no old friend, no forgotten relative, no deceased parent is still listed on a 30-year-old form. One signature on one form can be the difference between a 6-figure tax bomb for your daughter and a tax-free inheritance. Has anyone here ever received a brown envelope from the IRS you were not expecting? Tell me below. We read every comment, and your comment might be the reason the next family catches this before the letter arrives. Here's what I want you to leave this video with. You are not behind. The system is designed to keep you behind. The 401k was sold to your parents as a reward. It is not a reward. It is a deferred tax account with a forced withdrawal schedule attached. You can change the picture. You can take control. You can move money to a Roth on your terms. You can give it to a charity and skip the tax. You can fix the beneficiary forms. You can find an elder law attorney in your state. You can sit down with your daughter this weekend and have the hard conversation about what is really in the IRA and who is really on the form. The system does not want you to do this. The system wants you to wait, to assume, to trust that the brown envelope will not arrive. But the brown envelope arrives. It arrives in November. It arrives at the kitchen table. It arrives in the hands of a man who just wanted to take care of his wife. Frank Holm is sitting at that table right now. He did not have this information. Now you do. Do not let the system take the next 41 years of your family's savings because nobody at the bank told you the rules. Tell me your state in the comments. The RMD math changes where you live. Tell me your birth year if you are over 73. Tell me the year on the oldest 401k statement you can find in your house. Subscribe if you want the truth before the paperwork shows up at your front door. Share this with one family member tonight. One conversation now can save a house later. Next week, I am going to show you what happens when an ex-wife is still listed as the beneficiary on an inherited IRA worth $612,000. The new wife had no idea. The kids had no idea. The letter from the IRA custodian changed the entire estate plan in one sentence. Do not miss it.